welcome to Mom's Way to Wellness. I am your host, Ida Maravillas, and today we are starting a series on burnout. We're going to be talking today about the top 3 signs that you might be experiencing burnout as we kick off this series. And the reason we're talking about burnout is because it comes up a lot. It comes up with moms that I talk to, with clients who I work with, and with friends who are actually in education, to be specific. And we're talking about this today because it's a topic that moms get impacted by as well. So if you ever wonder if you're feeling burnt out or battling depression, we're going to talk about the top 3 signs that what you may be experiencing is burnout. And we'll touch on 2 important steps that can help you to address it in today's episode. I want to remind you that this episode is for educational purposes only, and it is not meant to replace any form of formal therapy or treatment that you need to obtain if you are battling with depression or another mental illness or a need of support. We will have a future episode on when to consider if it's time to seek out support. But today, again, we're talking about burnout, and I'm going to go over some of the ways that burnout is described and why it happens. And I want to share a little bit about my own experience with feeling burnt out. I can relate because it's something that I've experienced in different ways. I was burnt out after a long season of volunteering in different ministries. I was burnt out when I was raising toddlers and had a limited support system. And recently, I was burnt out when I was at my previous place of employment, and it resulted in a pivot that I made to change career paths a few years ago. And I remember a conversation that I was having with a friend back at that time who was also experiencing burnout at work. And as we talked, I started to really think about, well, what is the difference between burnout and depression? Because there are these overlapping symptoms, and there are these ways that we can feel like they're a little bit the same. And they are a little bit the same, but they're also very different. And so this was a way that made sense to me as far as how I could explain the difference. With burnout, we can feel better when we get a break from the stressors and take care of ourselves. We're able to get back to work from a better place when we've had the break. So a lot of times, this is like a mental health day, right? Like we could take a day off and not have to show up for all the same responsibilities and use our brain in a different type of way. We have like limited capacity for what we typically take care of when it comes to being burnt out. We come back refreshed. We come back being able to tackle whatever it is that we need to get done. And we still like overall what we do. It's not like something has changed significantly in terms of our ability to perform our responsibilities. It's just that it feels better after that break. With depression, our mood is impacted in all settings, and the break isn't enough. So when I talk to others who are feeling like they are burnt out, there's some common ways that burnout tends to be described. And so I want to talk about that because it's not always that we realize, oh, I'm falling into a season of burnout. It's typically that we feel something in our body, we feel a sign, we feel a trigger, and that's when we know like we're already in it, and that's when we recognize it. So some of the signs or the ways that burnout tends to be described is a lack of feeling empowered or passionate about doing something that they were passionate about. The passion and the fire that used to energize you starts to slowly fade until it is suffocated, and it usually happens over a period of time. It feels like a constant mental exhaustion. Like the mental load feels so overwhelming, and it feels like you have to be on all the time. So there's brain fog. It could be hard to think of all the steps that you need to follow to get something done. It could feel overwhelming, and it could feel like things are hard to do or that there's no energy to get them done. We know that mental load in motherhood comes in a lot of different ways of the things that are not seen. I know that I will be talking about this a little bit more in another episode about burnout. But that is one thing. It is the brain fog that comes with the mental exhaustion. Another way that burnout is often described is feeling numb, having a hard time to be able to feel connected to yourself and being able to feel connected to others, which for moms tends to be the kids, right? Like our kids. It's hard to get on an emotional level with them and be able to meet them at the needs that they're presenting to you. So this feeling of disconnection from yourself and from others and not being able to even fully describe what it is that you are feeling. And another sign is increased irritability, that, things that didn't bother you before or didn't bother you as much might be significantly more intense in terms of a response. So, you may snap at your kids or at others, or the noise around you can feel like it's too much. And the constant interruptions just, the patience for it runs out, because let's be honest, constant interruptions comes with the territory when it comes to being a mom. And so those are some signs of burnout, but other ones can also include feeling like your daily activities are not something that you can control, or dreading the interactions that are the underlying drains of energy, or feeling like you are not valued as an individual with needs, but only as a person who has to do the work. Because see, before burnout, the work, it carried value. It carried maybe a sense of satisfaction, a sense of joy when it was being done. But with burnout, that light is fading. And so a lot of times I also describe like a candle burning, and it reaches the end of its wick and there's nothing left to fuel the flame. It just blows out, and eventually it's just the lingering smell of the smoke in the air. And so if you are experiencing burnout, it doesn't mean that you're failing as a mom. It means that your body is asking for care. And there are some small steps towards reconnecting with yourself that can help you address these warning signs and help you to reconnect with your kids as well and with others. And so one very important thing to do when it comes to any kind of emotional overwhelm or stress or anxiety, and in this case burnout, is to recognize it. We can't address something without recognizing it. We will just think in circles and wonder, what's wrong? What is it? What's going on? Until we find a name for what is happening. So it's important to recognize if you are just carrying a burden and a weight into the things that used to bring you joy. And so, there are a few things that we can do that I'm going to go into a little bit more deeply in future episodes, but I just want to touch on, besides recognizing it, is to look for ways that you can incorporate some form of breaks in your day, some sort of mental rest, some sort of way to reset your nervous system, and to let someone else help carry the load. Ask someone for help. If you are co-parenting, you have a spouse in your home and you have a partner, to be able to ask very specifically for a particular need that needs to be met, to be able to ask it in a very direct way, but also to let go of the expectation that it'll get done in the way that you would want it to get done. And so, helping take care of yourself could be helping someone else to know what the needs are and to be able to step in and give you some support. Because burnout happens when we reach our capacity, but we keep on pushing ourselves. So being able to recognize that you do need some help with the load means that you're able to recognize that you are beyond your capacity. And that could mean beyond your capacity for time. If you're overcommitted to things, it could mean that you're beyond capacity for how much energy you have and maybe expecting too much for yourself in a given day, or that you are just really, really exhausted and need a break from all of the things that come with being a mom. And so from a faith perspective, I do want to touch on this idea that many women have come to carry, which is a belief that women are supposed to be strong and handle everything. And sometimes that bar gets set, and it's set very high. And we tell ourselves that we can do all things. And yes, there is a verse that says we can do all things. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And so I agree with that verse. I agree with what is written. I just want to be gentle in reminding you that it doesn't mean that you were called to do all things. And so with burnout, a lot of times what happens is you're taking care of all of it. And sometimes there are things that you weren't necessarily called to be the one to address. Maybe you were called to manage your needs and bring them before God, but not to manage everyone else's needs on your own. Were you really called to work harder, or were you called to set aside a day to rest? And we will talk about rest very specifically in a couple of the upcoming episodes in this series. But that is so important, to be able to recognize that God doesn't put all of these things, all of these burdens, all of these weights on us for us to carry on our own. It is intended for us to have a daily walk with Him, to have a daily reconnection with Him. And so burnout, it happens. It happens in service to others, it happens in the workplace, and it happens within the walls of our home. And so I want to encourage you that if you are experiencing burnout, that it's okay to give yourself an opportunity to take a break and to find a way to not only reconnect with yourself, but to reconnect with your Maker. There is space for realizing when our capacity has been exceeded and making changes to how we can address burnout. You are not alone in this experience, and you are not meant to do it all by yourself. Thank you for being with us in today's episode, and I hope you will tune in for the rest of the series as we continue to explore burnout and different ways that we can recover from the effects of it in our lives.